Hi, I'm Sharon Abreu, and I'm very pleased to be interviewing some wonderful, fascinating, talented people today in conjunction with the video of the song You Look Up. I am a friend of Pushkara Sally Ashford, the songwriter, and a great supporter and artist with her organization SingPeace. So let me now introduce Pushkara Sally Ashford, the songwriter of You Look Up, and her son, David Sapphire, the recording engineer and producer of the song, Melissa Koch, who is a wonderful artist and activist who collaborated on Whidbey Island with Pushkara, and Melissa's daughter, Alice Springs, and her partner Enzo Pollux, and they are in Jalapa, Mexico. Jalapa, Mexico. Okay. Right, so let's delve in and talk about this wonderful song and music video. I think we're going to start with Alex. I'm sorry. Whoa. Now I'm getting a little goofy. And I'd like to start with Alice and Enzo and ask them, how did you get involved and what was it like making this music video?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your beautiful introduction, and so great to be here with everybody. So to answer your question, my mother, Melissa, contacted us with this beautiful invitation to participate and get involved in the beautiful project that Pushkara and David have been creating over, I don't know how many years now, but really exciting to bring it to life here in Mexico, and it's been an incredible journey. I love that word in this case because it literally has been, and we've learned so much about ourselves, about life, about collaboration, about love, and what life means nowadays. To put ourselves back into this sort of reflective mode. And we're just very grateful. We're very excited to share this video with everybody and to be able to receive feedback in the future. Is going to be really beautiful to see where this takes us as a family, because we've talked a lot about the fact that we all worked as a family, mother and son, mother and daughter, father and son, couples, all about relationship and working as a team. It's my first experience having this much of a responsibility in a project, so it was really daunting at first to take on this journey, but also so inspiring and exciting, especially since Pushkara and David are very creative human beings themselves who work for peace and unity. So it really touched us to the core right away, and we were able to sort of dance actually and sing and create together. So yeah, I don't know if Enzo wants to add anything to his experience.
Hola a todos. Muchas gracias por la introducción muy bonita, y encantado de tener esta oportunidad también de compartir lo que tenemos que contar de esta experiencia que ha sido maravillosa. Cuando llega a nosotros, o a mí particularmente, la idea de You Look Up me hace pensar mucho en la atención que prestamos al teléfono, a las redes sociales, a tantas cosas que nos rodean hoy en día, que dejamos de poner atención a cuando Dios toca en tu espalda y You Look Up. Entonces, tenemos que prestar atención a otras cosas. Este se me hace un foro muy bonito, un espacio en el cual podemos compartir a los animales, a la naturaleza, a ideas trascendentales que perduran por el tiempo, la sabiduría. Y me parece tan bonito y tan buen momento en la historia, y con la pandemia y todo esto, recordar y repensar lo que nos rodea y que podemos aprovecharlo y maravillarnos, quedarnos realmente fascinados solo mirando hacia arriba, levantando la frente y tomando lo que hay en ese momento. Para mí fue tomar esta oportunidad de trabajo y colaboración con personas tan importantes e interesantes también. Y no puedo más que estar agradecido porque es algo que es bueno. Y gracias.
Gracias.
So yeah, I mean, if anybody needs a translation, let me know. I'm more than happy to. Yeah.
Say something for those of us in the northern hemisphere.
Podríamos poner.
Absolutely. No, Enzo's asking if we can put subtitles. Maybe in the future that will happen for sure. I think that's a great idea. I think what we're saying is that for us, there's this reverence, and I think all of us have that in common here today. So it's the slowing down again. It's the pandemics and the hard moments in life that bring us to realize that we're actually spending a lot of time on our phones, on our computers, in our minds, in our brains, and we're not in the heart, and we're not necessarily observing and being in awe. So when God knocks us on our backs, we have this automatic reverence mode. And Enzo and I talk a lot about how, because we're visual artists, all of us, we're very visual, so we observe a lot, whether we want to or not. We're constantly checking things, and I think David, Pushkara, Melissa, all of us have that in common. So working together was really interesting that way, how we get to see points of view. And I think Enzo and I have this way of remembering the simplicity of things and how they can really make us see beauty in such simplicity in everyday life. So again, we matched kind of all of us in our funny, quirky ways and in our more professional or unprofessional ways. And it was the same working here in Mexico. I mean, taking off on what you're saying, I find that this experience of co-creating really brought that humbleness back to us. And I think then you put the ego aside and you let spirit work through you. From the beginning, when Pushkara and Melissa and David shared with us the let's say the groundwork of this project and everything that had been done before, and Melissa with her art, my mother, we really had this exciting moment where we could share our visions. And so here in Mexico, there are certain codes and symbols that a lot of us already know, especially being neighbors with the United States. I think the culture is very present on both ends. And again, us being here in Jalapa, it's a very specific region in Mexico that has one of the last, what they call bosque de niebla, which is, it's a special type of forest. Yeah. And they're very unique and they're very biodiverse. So we have a lot of wild orchids, things that are almost extinct, animals that are very ancient. So it's very a part of everyday life and culture here. We're staying here with the grandparents of Enzo, so we are on a daily basis with elders who know a lot about this region and about this biodiversity, who've passed it down generation through generation. So we chose to film on a piece of land where there's access to that, so we could share that with the world and bring hope. Because honestly, myself being here, it gave me so much hope when I first arrived here. And my mother and her partner came to visit, and I think it brought them a lot of hope, coming from countries that are very saturated and very asleep, I would say. I would even put it that way. And to come to a place where there's this life, there are butterflies, there are birds, there are all these wild animals and beings, sentient beings that are being honored and revered. And so we really wanted to bring that out to the world through the message of the You Look Up song. And I think that's really that's where Pushkara and we meshed, so to say, so to speak, really like, we all get ecstatic about these things amongst us. So let's focus on that. And then we talked about that city vibe, that urban vibe, with David as well, about like filming the streets of New York. And so we recreated kind of this urban setting and scene in the center of Jalapa, which is very colonial Spanish, Mexican town. So we got to play a lot with identities. And again, we really try not to appropriate, especially myself, not being Mexican by blood, but by heart, I really feel connected to my partner's family and the culture here. So it's about not appropriating, trying not to appropriate, to represent something that's very important here. This style of dance that we're representing has a huge history. It's over 250 years old. It's got a mix of African, Spanish, and Mexican roots. So it's indigenous, native to Mexico, but it's also mixed in with drums and beats that are with the feet, the zapateo, which is also gypsy. So it's really very dense, and I'm only skimming the surface here. I'm not an expert. We are not experts, and we really stress that, because some experts might see it and say, what have they done? And some might just really fall in love with it. And I think that's the risk you take when you're being creative, is points of view, and you put yourself out there. So we've put ourselves out there, all of us, and we're doing so today. But we really hope that you enjoy it, and that it inspires this hope for a better future, of transmutation as well, this transformation that we go through, that's also very present in Mexican culture, that I've been learning a lot while being here. And I know it exists in many cultures. But I think the transmutation is really what we're going through as a humanity, as a global, as a whole. We're questioning everything, and we're decolonializing ourselves. And I think peace and unity definitely demands that. So I think, again, humbling ourselves, learning, sharing, listening, and speaking up when you have to are all a part of that process. And ironically, it's what we lived as a creative team.
Yeah, I really love the way that this piece crosses borders. It literally crosses a border that we know is an artificial border, but there's been a lot of talk about this border. And I love the way this music and this video transcends that. And it is really quite multicultural. You're bringing in a bunch of different cultural facets of it, which I just love. I wonder if this might be a good time to maybe just say a little bit about the challenge, now that we have the song in English and in Spanish. Would you like to say something about that?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. So as we went into the journey of telling the story, I think right away we felt like it was interesting for the viewer who wouldn't be in Mexico per se, watching the story take place, and hearing David's version, which is really beautiful and very traditional folk from a certain part of the world. So again, through folklore, we wanted to connect with each other, and then in that comes the more contemporary way that one can interpret something that's folklore. So we created the end of the song in Spanish, and we really enjoyed that process. It was very organic as well. We had translated the words already with Enzo.
Si puedo decir
yeah,
algo,
por supuesto.
Es interesante el reto de challenge para poder transconceptualizar las emociones. No solo se trata de poner un traductor y ya está la letra. No sé si me puedes ayudar.
So as Enzo is saying, thank you. It's not just a mere translation. It's actually trying to have again that transcending process of transconceptualization of these themes that you then recreate. So you're not just doing a mere translation. You're actually feeling it, right? And
Y es cuando terminas de entender de qué se trata, te pones en contacto con la emoción de personas geográficamente lejos. Y
with the distance, geographical distance, even though there's that separation, you're reconnecting.
A través de una emoción, ¿no?
Through
Entonces,
an emotion.
Es un reto bastante interesante en ese sentido de conectar entre aprovechar el lenguaje, ¿no?
Yes, using the advantage of language, and then the language, I guess, of music, which, like we said, and we've talked about. So we created this song, and we wanted it to feel really fun and in the moment, that spontaneity that happens when you're just in you're jubilating, you're in ecstasy with life. And there's those little moments when you look up, right? So for us, it was, well, when you have fire, you get sparks and you're all around the bonfire, and it's a whole process. So we created this song ending to continue on the song that David and Pushkara have created. And it was such an incredible experience. We then started chatting together, all of us, and we came up with that challenge idea where it was like, okay, let's get people to get out there and come together, and whether it's through Zoom with the pandemic or somebody on their own, or they have an opportunity to join one another and create, and then share with us through this hashtag, which is the You Look Up ! challenge, where we invite people to use all their different social media platforms and come together and continue this story and this song.
Yeah, so we're inviting people and encouraging people to take this song and put it in your own language and capture the spirit of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
and
excited about that.
It's about recreating the song in their own style, with their own voices, and in their own languages.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, I think this might be a good time to ask Pushkara. We're talking a lot about this song, so let's hear from the songwriter. How did this come about? How did you end up birthing this song, bringing it into the world? I know that you and I met through peace and progressive politics, and you bring that directly through your music in such a beautiful way. Tell us about that.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'd like to give a little context for how we all got here, because I don't think we would be here right now if I hadn't had a singing dream, Sharon, that informed me that I was going on a pilgrimage for peace and global harmony in a gypsy wagon. And that, the old guard would have assumed that you have to struggle and be, your nose to the grindstone and carrying heavy burdens. And when this dream came about, I thought, you mean I can be an activist and have fun too? I mean, that was, because I could see people around this caravan, which came to me in the aftermath of the dream, and which was so easy to birth, because I went online the day I woke up with the dream. I went online and I found how to build a gypsy wagon at the Port Townsend School of Woodworking, which was just a ferry boat away from me. And I could take this course and learn how to build a gypsy wagon. And all of that took place on the heels of the dream. So I became a listener in the sense of just being guided step by step toward coming back to something that had been so much a part of my young life. you know, the first 40 years of my life, I was a singer. And it was both my comfort and my currency in life, but then the voice left. And I had my own struggles, my private struggles. I began to understand that, okay, somebody asked me, why do you think you're losing your voice at this time? And I said, I don't know. I think I'm supposed to shut up and listen for a change. And she said, well, how are you going to do that? And I said, well, I don't know. I've tried meditation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nothing happened. And she said, well, meditation is my favorite thing. And she suggested 2 things. First, to go inside to that place that was entirely still, unperturbed by worldly care. And the truth is, I didn't know inside. I said, inside what? But she invited me to come to her place and meditate with her one morning. And we sat in the sun with the sun coming through lattice windows. She didn't give me any instruction, but I remembered what she'd said about the stillness inside. And I despaired, but I held down my...
Oh, we just lost your sound, hon.
Oh, that's
Okay.
because okay. So she said, so I don't let her see you cry. Well, she caught that and she came over and stood behind me and just worked my shoulders down, and I let go. But in that moment, there weren't tears. In that moment was perfect stillness. Everything stopped. The list of things to do, the list of things to undo, all of my judgments about myself, all of my limitations, everything went away. At that moment, there was a crack, a big sound in the region of my heart, and the light just poured out. There was an inside to me, and I didn't need to despair anymore that I couldn't find it. So that was the beginning of a real understanding of the source of peace. And it's taken me on a journey, you know. I'm now 80. So it was around the time that I was 40. And in this time, learning to sustain that sense of inner peace and to communicate it through my actions and through my relationships with the earth and with people has become, you know, my journey, my mission. Out of that then was that dream, which I will tell you what the dream said. It was a singing dream. It was a song, and it kept repeating itself after I woke up. I don't usually tell this part, but you will live in other people's houses, and the work you do will be known long after your name is forgotten. And I thought that was a good sign, because I wouldn't be blamed for anything, right? If my name was forgotten. But the important part was then to listen and be guided to whatever it was I was meant to share with the world. And so then the gypsy wagon manifested, and Sharon and her sweet partner, Mike Hurwitz, have been very much a part of the SingPeace pilgrimage. In fact, she has named her choir up on Orcas Island SingPeace. I've had to rely on other people's singing voices, which is great. It's wonderful. I've learned to be a catalyst for that. And so people have gathered around, and we have taken this journey together. And you can learn more about that journey on our website, which is singpeacepilgrimage.ning.com. And so getting back to You Look Up, that song was born prior, quite a number of years prior to that singing dream. And it came out of some words that I couldn't forget in my own journey, that came from a friend's grandmother. Her grandmother was from the South, born of slave family. And my friend Shanti said, her grandmother would say, God knock you on your back, so you look up, which meant pay attention, wake up. Well, I really didn't want to write a song that said, God knock you on your back, but I pretty much had exhausted my options at the time. I was pushing 60. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a voice. It was hard to get work. I didn't have a place to live. I was at a real turning point. That song was born, and I'm telling you, on the heels of that, everything opened up. Everything opened up for me. I won't bore you with all the details, but except to say that I learned how important intention is. And from that, I found myself recreating myself in every moment. And I was doing it in community, and I shared that song during the arc of days that every part of the song represents. The dawn, the crack of thunder and lightning, the rain, and the moonrise. So that was in contrast to, the tendency to either make ourselves all important or nothing, and we're neither one. We're just that sweet, loving self. And so the B part of the song wants to remind people to, do the self-check, look in the mirror, be aware when you're putting yourself down, and just come back to love. And what better place to do that than in nature? That song was written 22 years ago. And it's seen a few iterations, which I think my son can tell you about now.
Yeah, so you really had to reconnect with yourself, and that reconnected you with a lot of beings in the natural world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you brought in your son, David. I'd love to hear from him.
Yeah, I composed that song in the middle of the woods, by the way, in upstate New York.
Yeah, well, in the woods, you have to look up to see the light. David says, tell us, how did you get involved with this project?
Sure. I'll just say to tag on there that in the woods and in New York City, you have to look up and
Look
see
up.
the light because buildings are so tall, you can't see the light unless you're looking straight up. Or you're on one of the streets facing west. So, first of all, I'd like to offer some appreciation to Pushkara for writing such a lovely song and for gathering such wonderful people. And again, tagging on to the video, something that I appreciate so much in the photography and the work that was done is that, and it reflects in the song, as Pushkara said, you know, the song mentions a lot about nature, the dawn, the weather, and so on. And the beautiful photography also reflects, you know, you can tell that whoever shot this has a love and appreciation and a connection to nature and a respect for nature. And I think sadly that respect and an intimate connection to nature is greatly lost these days. So I have great gratitude and appreciation to be working with people who love nature and appreciate the nurturance and sustenance that nature gives us. Shockingly, you know, California is in flames. Smoke is everywhere up at down the West Coast. In a local park, a group called Extinction Rebellion had information tables and science experiments and live music. It was a beautiful community gathering with people talking, discussing their concerns about the environment, about the weather, about climate change. Lo and behold, the park was surrounded by police vans and police SUVs and white shirt officers and blue shirt officers and some hiding behind trees. And they had that entire place staked out to the 9s or to the 11s. And how is it that we can have a culture that treats people who care about the environment as a threat? That just, to me, shows very, very sadly misplaced priorities.
It shows how disconnected we are from the environment that supports our lives. Because if you don't care about the environment, how are you supposed to care about people's lives and people's health?
There's no future for anyone if we don't take care of our environment, if we don't respect our environment, if we don't respect the creatures that we share this planet with. You know, there's a philosophy of dominance and control. And unfortunately, that predominates. And I think that lessons from the indigenous people are very important to re-examine and bring back into, you know, the center of awareness, because they knew something.
You know, I think about the term I learned when we were supporting the Standing Rock Sioux, pushing back against the Dakota Access Pipeline, and I learned that the Lakota Sioux words that say "mitakuye oyatsin," all my relations, and they're talking about everyone and everything, all my relations.
Yes.
Mm.
So
Well,
it's,
Dave, go ahead.
it's a beautiful thing that we have these artistic works here that celebrate nature, that celebrate our connection with nature, with family, cross boundaries, cross borders. It's so important, the message of unity and humanity. And humanity includes the creatures.
So I can
So,
see that you, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
go
interrupt
ahead,
you.
Sharon.
Well, I just wanted to say I can really feel how deeply you resonate with this song that your mother wrote. You know, she birthed you, she birthed this song, and that you brought yourself to this song in a deep way. Would you like to speak about that a little bit? Because you not
Absolutely.
only recorded and produced it, but you also are the lead singer, you played guitar, you brought it all together, brought it
Sure.
alive.
Yes, so it was a delightful thing to start working with this song. And I remember riding in a back of a pickup truck with an absolutely great musician, a singer, who's become quite well known as a jazz singer, named Kate McGarry. But we were driving down the highway, bouncing around in the back of this pickup truck, and she needed to get a recording done, and I needed a harmonizer. And so she helped me record the very first iteration of You Look Up with harmonies and guitar on a little 4-track cassette recorder. And that was great. And it just sat for a little while, but it gave us a good record for the song. And very much I knew I was acting on behalf of my mother, because, you know, she didn't have a voice, and it eventually came about that she wanted to do a more complete recording. And I felt that the most appropriate way would be to make a recording in something of the style that she had played as a folk singer. But I had also played as a bluegrass singer, so I incorporated that. I wasn't going to deny that part of my past. As a teenager, I had the honor, really, of being invited to join a band after I had only been playing guitar for 1 year. And the group themselves, they were all in their 20s. So we ended up, now the band leader, after our first rehearsal, took me aside and said, "Look, David, the band has concerns about you. They're not sure if you can do this." I was as green as a grasshopper. And he said, "But I think you can do this, but you really have to pull it together." Well, I ended up playing with them for 3 years. So that was a great experience. And so that's how I became versed, you could say, in folk music and bluegrass particular. So those elements are there in the song, but it's a very folky style of bluegrass. I helped arrange it. In bluegrass, I'll just describe, since we have a little extra time. Bluegrass is a famous guitar run, do-do-do-do-do-do-do. It's used as a fill or a phrase in between verses or at the end of a solo. And I thought I'd just have fun with it. So you'll hear in the song, do-do-do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do-do. So this is a double backflip G run. So that's kind of fun. And, you know, in the process of finding musicians, I was so lucky here in New York. Of course, we have a wealth of absolutely brilliant musicians. And it really didn't take that much time to find what I feel were just the best possible people for this recording. And that includes Lisa Gutkin of the Grammy-winning Klezmatics, a klezmer band. Absolutely amazing. You know, Lisa sat down in front of the microphone and she played solo after solo after solo. And she said, "Wait, I want to do that again." She did it again and again. I think, you know, she found all the phrasing that she wanted. I didn't tell her a thing, you know, but she was playing for her own satisfaction and working it and working it. And, you know, what she came up with is just perfect in my mind. Another incredible musician, Abby Gardner, the singer. She sang harmony and played dobro, which is a slide guitar. She's a master of her craft. She plays in Red Molly and she has her own projects. Absolutely wonderful artist. The mandolin player, Wayne Fugate, masterful mandolin player, classical, jazz, bluegrass. And I think what drew me to his playing was he understood bluegrass. You know, I was looking for people who understood folk music, not, you know, you could say rock musicians or contemporary musicians who could play the folk instruments, but I wanted an authentic feel, a folk music feel. And so you, in a way, you have to find those people who know the language of folk music.
Yeah.
And I
The
just
language
want
is in your bones.
yes,
The language is in your bones.
yes. And just a moment of appreciation for folk music, because in a way it's, you could say, indigenous, it's music that's indigenous to the people who live in a certain place. It's not commercial music. People in the olden days did not make a dime, or maybe they, you know, maybe they did make a living, but essentially it was non-commercial music. And the tunes and the songs that have survived over hundreds of years survived because they touched people's hearts. And people found meaning in these songs, or solace in these songs, or joy. So, you know, folk music has its own weight. It's like a river. So by tapping into that river, I feel it gives this song something of a force that's been built up. It has ties to roots of a tradition that goes back hundreds of years. So I wanted to do my best to connect this to these traditions. And so I think there we are. And once it was recorded, I went through a process, I guess, of understanding the recording. And really this year, just a combination of factors, including the COVID lockdown, gave me the time to really sit and re-examine, and I feel just to bring it all together in a way that it had not been together. And I sent Pushkara a version of it, and felt like, wow, it has its own life at this point. So very excited about that.
Well, thank you. I was very inspired hearing the song and seeing the video and how it all complements itself so well. Just thinking about this is a time when we so need to reconnect with ourselves and each other, and this song and video do it very powerfully. One of the things about the video is the artistic vision for it. And it's funny, you were just talking about, you know, the river, and I'm thinking about the theme of uplifting us up, and seeing Melissa, who's the artistic vision behind the video, with the salmon that she created behind her, and they're swimming upriver, you know, and not giving up despite some great odds. So it seems like a great segue to Melissa to ask you, how did you get involved with this project, and tell us how you feel having been a part of it.
Thank you, Sharon. Well, this project came to me as a great surprise. I'm not a music video director or producer. I'm a visual artist, but I do come from a background of theater and cinema. My grandfather wrote Casablanca, Howard Koch. So it's definitely in the DNA. And I call myself an artful activist. So I use my art at this time as a vehicle for transmitting messages and opening conversations about issues that I find important for us at this time, whether it's protecting orca whales, Chinook salmon, our water, our air, and the whole of Mother Earth. I just wanted, before I get too far into this conversation, I wanted to honor the Coast Salish people. Pushkara and I are on their land at this time here on Whidbey Island. So thank you for letting us be present on this land. And I also wanted to say, and this kind of addresses something David was talking about, we are leaving a time when the patriarchy really was very dominant here, and coming into a time of the divine feminine. It is now Mother's time. So we're seeing this huge change and transformation. So I was, while listening to everyone speaking, I was just thinking about how Pushkara has this body of work that is her life's work. And I'm also of an age where I have a body of work, which is my life's work. And it has taken many, many years for us to really come into ourselves fully and authentically. And this work behind me is part of that authentic work that I came here to do. And so these two matriarchs, Pushkara and myself, have come together. The Spirit has guided us and brought us together, because Pushkara has always been like a wind dancing around me on the islands, and I've always noticed her. But the Spirit brought us together to collaborate. And I also wanted to mention this thing of passing the torch. So there is this thing with where you get to a certain age where you have, if you have the grace and the courage to do it, you can pass the baton or pass the torch to younger generations. And this is how I brought my daughter and her partner Enzo into the project with Pushkara and David's blessing, of course. I, in a way, passed the torch to them, this younger generation, to craft this beautiful music video to accompany this really incredible piece of music, which is very timely. It's about the divine feminine. It's about having reverence for the earth and for all of her species that we are connected to. We cannot survive without the other species. It is a web. As Chief Seattle said, we are merely a strand in that web of life. And what we do to the web of life, we do to ourselves. And so it is now imperative and urgent for us to cool the planet, to come together in conversation, to talk about solutions for addressing climate change, addressing pollution, addressing people who are going hungry, many, many issues. This is the time for us to come together and collaborate together and implement these solutions. We have the technology, we have the knowledge, we know how to do this, but we need to now empower ourselves to do this and not wait for somebody else to do this. And I think that's our worst enemy, is that we think somebody else is going to fix it for us.
Notice the song says, you look up, you.
That's it.
Not somebody over there.
So, you know, we brought all of our activism to this, and all of our love and all of our commitment. And it's been a really fun project, a very creative project. And I have to say, a lot of it has had to do, for me anyway, personally, with also non-attachment in a way to the outcome, where you jump into the river and you flow with the waters, you flow with the emotion, you flow with trust, and trust in this family that's creating this together with self. And it's brought great healing. It hasn't always been comfortable. We've been over some bumpy patches, which has been interesting, because I think we're also, all of us, being called to come into fierce conversations together, where we really get to bring all our woundedness and our traumas to the surface, and we get to look at those together and hold the space together and bring healing. Because it is my belief, personally, if we must heal ourselves first before we can heal the planet. And I see that happening around me all the time, everywhere. And we've also been through that process of coming together and holding each other and working through our stuff together, and came out the other side looking up with something giving birth to something very beautiful that we are here sharing with the world, with all of you. And we'll really enjoy those of you who are musically inclined or theatrically inclined, or even a visual arts piece about this song. You know, why not? Let's open it up and think outside the box to take this beautiful song of Pushkara and David's and bring yourself to it, and keep this river flowing.
I just want to comment on one thing. Don't you think it's interesting that we're premiering this song during the Up convergence? So
No coincidences.
Up, UP, unity and peace. There are hundreds of people who have come forward, as you have just mentioned, Melissa, to share their gifts, to make an offering over this week of the Up convergence. So I have to acknowledge John Raymer and his sweet wife, Summer Joy Raymer, and everyone else who's been engaged in creating the platform that we're trying to learn fast enough in order to participate during the week. And we're going to be in 2 places on that platform. If you don't mind, I'll say right now that we have a short presentation on the making of the video, along with the video, on September 17th. That's next Thursday. Traditionally, this week or the 3rd week in September is really focused on international peace. So whatever energy we bring to it is going to support that energetic moment that we're looking for here, a transformative moment, the transmutation. So you'll see us in the, it's called Music, Poetry, and Dance room of the Up Convergence. If you go to peaceweekend.org/up, you will find the entire display of all of the rooms of the presentations for, in fact, there's one room called Divine Feminine and Masculine. There's one on veganism. There's ones on sustainability in all kinds of, and regeneration in all kinds of formats. The second presentation is the one that we're preparing for here now. You'll get to see the video again in the second presentation, which will be an hour-long event on September 18th, and you'll have to go to the website to get the times for that. So if you get acquainted with the Trello board where the whole entire conference is displayed, you'll be able to find us in those 2 rooms. The first one, again, starts with music. The second one is peace and spirituality. Sharon, it would be really nice for me and for the audience to know a little bit about where and how you came upon the connection practice.
Oh,
And
yes, because yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, Rita Marie Johnson, who created the connection practice, which is a way of getting more calm and centered in yourself, relieving stress, helping to deal with more stressful situations, having much improved relationships with other people, learning how to listen, how to give empathy to yourself and others. Rita Marie Johnson, who developed this specific practice, came to Whidbey Island on invitation of Pushkara Sally Ashford, and that was in 2011. And Pushkara hired myself and my partner, Mike Hurwich, to provide music for that 4-day intensive training at the Whidbey Institute. And we got to take that course for free, and we did music for the course. And it was one of the most life-changing experiences of our lives, because we went there thinking, oh, this will be really cool. We're going to learn something very valuable here and get to do music at the same time. There's nothing better than that for us, because that's our first passion, is doing music and singing for healing. But we ended up getting certified to teach this course. We ended up jumping through the hoops to get certified because we found it that transformative and that valuable. And Rita Marie Johnson will be also presenting during this peace conference. And Pushkara brought us into that work, we probably would not have heard of it otherwise. So very, very grateful for that.
Sharon and Mike performed at the UN University for Peace in Costa Rica at Rita Marie's invitation. It happened that because SingPeace invited BPeace to come to Whidbey Island, we had all these musicians. We had 3 stand-up basses. Can you believe? We had, you know, singers, we had guitars and drummers and a couple of fiddle players, and it was amazing, amazing. So people came from around the country. They came from, we had one person from Canada, and some of those people, well, I believe that everyone has incorporated something from the course, but some are applying it in their work setting to this day.
Right.
One of the participants, Becca Atkins, came from Artreach and Second Step Players, which is
Right. Artreach in Connecticut.
Yeah, and she brought her whole staff to that. So they work with people who have mental health challenges. It's the best program in the country. It needs to be a national model. So she and her staff were able to incorporate a lot of those methods. And Sharon and Mike have incorporated that in their teaching within your organization, Irthlingz.
Right, right. Our organization is Irthlingz Arts-Based Environmental Education, and we also perform as the Irthlingz Duo. It's IRTHLINGZ, and just very, very privileged to be able to do this work. I just want to add that the program was originally called BPeace, and it is now called the Connection Practice. And the reason why the name was changed is because we really want to bring this to people across the United States. But in our country, the word peace is not a comfortable word for people. And that's very telling. So we changed it to the Connection Practice because really it's all about connection. It's about how can we connect with what's going on in ourselves and how can we connect better with other people. And one of our other singer Connection Practice trainers is named Cecilia St. King. She is also going to be doing a concert during this Peace Conference this week. And we're hopefully going to do something as well, Mike and myself. I still have to register us for that, but I'm hoping that I will be able to do that.
Yeah, it's a very fast moving river, but I'm so grateful that people are, you know, jumping in. It's great.
Since we mentioned
and thank you for
water,
this contribution.
Oh, sorry. Since we mentioned water, there are a number of speakers on the UpConvergence Trello platform who will be talking about water and our connection to water and how we have to restore the waters of life. It's funny that my installation behind me is all about water and the Chinook salmon and protecting these species. So may the river keep flowing. Yes, blue. Water is in the house and it connects all of us.
That's
Sharon,
another thing. Another thing from the Lakota Sioux, Mini-Wachoni, water is life. So much of our bodies, our blood is water. We cannot exist without water. And we've forgotten that we need to honor and protect the water to a large degree. So I'm really, really appreciative of all of the efforts, particularly the Native Americans, to bring us back to our connection to water.
I don't think it's going to be any surprise to the people who attend this conference that the connection between our inner state and the movements within nature are so intimately connected. If we are storing anger, if we're storing venom within our heart, if we refuse to look at those things within ourselves, then it does manifest. It manifests in our relationships between us and our children or our parents or family members. And it also stirs fire and harshness in the environment. And if there's anything we can learn from this time as we sit in our pajamas or wherever in our quiet spaces, it is to begin to trust the process of releasing the hardness that covers the shell of fear and anger and resentment and anguish, to let this light open to the light, open to the, the possibility really of freedom within ourselves, within our own lifetimes. Then what happens is the degradation of the soil, which is so hard right now. And the degradation of the water, the degradation of the skies. We can turn this around if we're willing to turn around and look in the mirror and do the inner work. So, this is, you would have thought this is just a little song, right? It's only a 5-minute video, so you gotta watch it. And maybe you can watch it a bunch of times, and then maybe you'll be inspired to take up our challenge. #YouLookUp, exclamation point, and make your chorus. Make your good noise. Look up, okay? I love what happened in translation as the folks in Jalapa took hold of it. They really made it, they brought their own culture through the chorus, didn't they? And the sound. It's not a perfect representation. It doesn't have to look like something that came out of Appalachia, or the bluegrass tradition. So see what you can do with it, and let's all look up.
And with that, our time is up. Thank you all so much for your great contributions to this very special and powerful addition to the world. And wishing you great peace and joy as we go forward and bring ourselves up together.